But then when I got in the car again, we ripped even more. So I had to go over to Gina. So.
That's how we got.
We don't care. We're all wearing jeans.
Well, I go back to the office though, and they're like, "You were in jeans this morning."
They decided to throw every jeans in.
And then
Yeah.
our deadline is, right now I have 0 applications for our zoning commission alternate.
Oh, for
The
another
seventh.
one.
Oh,
So we're trying to close it off tomorrow at 4, so hopefully.
Do we need to add that on the agenda then, that has Seth been resigned?
You could do that if you'd like. I mean, I presented it to the
It was at the
trustees.
trustee meeting.
I did it.
So he did resign, he has moved.
He resigned, yes.
So we probably would want to enter that into our record then as
Sure.
well. So we'll add that.
Mike, Ralph he's downloaded the paperwork to fill out.
I heard he has death in the family.
Yeah, his mother-in-law died last Friday.
Oh.
So he's kind of,
There's one other, well, I think there's 2 others that we're thinking, so, but I haven't received it.
I bet we'll get 3 tomorrow.
I heard too.
No. So Seth has resigned then from the position, and then Bill has been then appointed to fill that vacancy.
Correct.
So when we get renewed and everything, we don't do the, go into the, get fingerprinted like Nick and I had to do?
I was told only new, so when you first come in, just like.
Only me?
Yeah, only you. Yeah, for some reason,
You knew,
we
I-
think you're a
I-
criminal,
but-
we'll get fingerprinted again.
Yeah, Nick,
So,
not Nick, but
All right.
Pat and I had to,
We can
and
get this.
Seth.
Let's get the meeting
That
started.
was a pain in the neck.
And we'll move on. We'll call to order
Did you?
the Brimfield Township Zoning Commission meeting for May 11th, 2023. Get a roll call.
Tom Johnson.
Here.
Debbie Darling. Here. Tom Sargent.
Here.
Colette Loznick. Here. Bill Anderson.
here.
Jenny Miller.
Here.
All right, we have some amendments to the agenda, so let's review those before we accept the agenda. On the agenda, we have Seth, who was a current member, has moved and resigned from his position, and Bill Anderson has been appointed to fill the vacancy left by Seth. So we'll make a note of that. A discussion of the board in broadcasting on YouTube. And we're going to then also remove from the agenda the discussion of the Town Center Master Plan 2023.
Okay.
With those modifications, we get a motion to accept the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
All in favor? Any opposed? All right. Moving right along to approval of the minutes, and then the minutes of the last meeting has not been published, so they're unavailable for us to approve. And I'm certain we'll see those next month. All right, moving right along, the second would be then Seth's resignation based on employment opportunities. And then Mr. Anderson has been appointed to fill that vacancy. I don't believe we need a motion on that.
no, I think it's just a discussion.
It has been approved by
It
the
has been approved
trustees,
by the
so
trustees.
welcome to the board,
Yeah.
better or worse.
Thanks.
And then we have the discussion of the board help me out here, broadcasting, there we go. The meetings on YouTube. We have had an inquiry to Attorney Murdoch, working, he's a county prosecuting attorney that helps the townships on issues. We sent a letter and returned a response on May 5th. And the letter states as follows. You ask whether the township should continue to televise YouTube, its board zoning appeals, BZA meetings / hearings, and the zoning commission, ZC meetings. In my opinion, the meeting should not be televised with some exceptions, see below. However, the decision is probably best left to the BZA and the CZ, assuming the Board of Trustees is all right funding the telecast should either decide it wanted to continue. The BZA meeting, not a hearing, and a ZC meeting are to be conducted in public, referencing the revised code 121.22 and below. The intent of public participation, which cannot occur via YouTube televised meetings, may have been a result of COVID, but as of July 1st, 2022, all public bodies that are subject to Ohio Open Meeting Acts should have resumed meetings in person. The only exception I would make is a ZC meeting over the controversial rezoning issues. Further, BZA hearings should not be televised because they are a quasi-judicial and general such proceedings, while they may be open to the public, are not televised. Pertaining to the BZA, Ohio Revised Code Section 519.15 provides that it shall adopt rules in accordance with the zoning resolutions, and its meetings shall be open to the public. The zoning resolution, Section 530.04, provides that the BZA shall adapt rules and procedures not in conflict with those provisions of all regulations that may be necessary to put into effect the powers and jurisdiction conferred on it. All meetings shall be open to the public. The RC does not address the CZ adopting any rule. However, zoning resolution, chapter 520.04, provides that the ZC shall adopt rules and procedures not in conflict with provisions of this resolution and may be necessary to put into effect the powers and jurisdiction conferred onto it. All meetings shall be open to the public. If you have any further questions, let me know. Sincerely, Chad Murdoch.
Could you read that
Starting from the bottom. Okay. So I guess what we have before us then is consideration that should we continue broadcasting on YouTube or should we not broadcast on YouTube? Is that correct? And we'll have some discussion.
So is this pertaining to just the meeting being broadcast or someone being able to participate in the meeting on YouTube? And
So they cannot participate on YouTube at all after COVID. So that no longer exists. The question lies is do you want to continue to do the zoning commission the way we are, where you're broadcasting on YouTube, and also, the minutes per the Ohio Revised Code, the YouTube they really don't mean anything. That it all falls back onto the minutes. The minutes are the legal and binding document. Once you guys approve those, that's set in stone, that goes into a book, and that's what everybody's supposed to go based off of. If you leave the YouTubes on forever, you have people not reading the minutes, they're watching the YouTubes.
Right.
So I think that's where, Chad was saying, he wants everybody to attend in public. If people are going to speak, we'd rather not have them speak on a social or network 5 days after the fact. We'd like them here and speaking so that the decisions get made here in front of you guys. So I think that's what the point is, to get more people here to the meeting and participating rather than just sit at home. These meetings are held at night so everybody can attend, and we get nobody, there's nobody attending. This is the first gentleman we've had here in, how many months other than Sue Fields and Mike came as residents, but we haven't had anybody else here for a while.
Do we pay for YouTube? I read something. I read something in here that talked about paying somewhere. And I was just curious as to, are we actually paying for that?
I don't know. We're paying for the IT director
right.
to
I was gonna
be
say
here
the
at
IT.
every meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
the IT,
I believe
the
if you
equipment.
wanted, uninterrupted, ads, things like that beforehand and stuff like that, I think you pay a fee.
Well, I think he does the videos here, and then he's got to go back and edit them and make sure that and then post them live or whatever he's got to do. I don't know to what extent that has to happen, but the point of going to this, I think it was clear. Definitely, I think BZA is going to have to move away from it. zoning commission is pretty much up to the board and how you feel about it. If you want more participation, I think you want to.
Do we know how many people watch?
I was
mean,
gonna
we
ask
do
that.
know, But do we know? I mean, I know they can track it.
Joe does. I'm sure when he comes up,
Yeah.
he can let you know, but I don't know the official numbers, but I do think Joe does.
I don't think it's more than 20 or 30.
But those 20 or 30 would be, when they say, hey, I look forward to watching it, at my convenience in my living room with my feet up.
Well, and then again, you're looking, some of the people that are watching it are specifically waiting for, or hoping that something goes wrong, or maybe not hoping, but, maybe not doing an emotion right, or something is goofy. It's like, just come in and kind of say, we're gonna make this right. We run the meetings effectively, we do it right.
That's true. You end up memorializing the meetings in perpetuity. And it can come back if something wasn't acted on appropriately, or you didn't wait for a second or something like that. It's been memorialized, and it's not going to be reflected in the minutes. It'll be reflected. So there is a problem with that. It opens yourself up to make sure that all your pieces.
And you're making a lot of zoning changes to the map, and we're trying to rectify a lot of the areas that are non-conforming uses. You want these people to come to the meetings. We're holding public hearings on big zoning issues. We're advertising it, we're putting it all over, and
Nobody
nobody's
shows.
coming, and then people just watch it later. We want these people to come and say, hey, I don't want my area zoned.
Yeah,
We wanna
that's
hear
what
it.
happens, yeah,
Well, it wasn't televised before COVID, right?
Exactly.
Correct.
right,
COVID's over, so
that's what I
I'm
said.
So they're
thinking
gonna
we go
see a
back
meeting or not, they get the letters in the mail, they make the decision if they wanna come.
We do everything per the law,
Right.
everything's advertised.
Exactly,
Yeah. And we go above and beyond. We don't have to advertise on the website, we do.
right.
And then they also, it's quite a bit.
So for clarity, are we being live streamed right now?
Correct.
Okay, and then that video stands up there, and then people can go back and watch it.
Right.
So I would think as long as we understand, well, regardless of what we do, if somebody wanted input, they would have to be at the meeting,
Correct.
because there's no way for them to get online and come in through that. So then what happens with the videos after that, if somebody's sitting at home thinking about it, weeks later, they could complain about something, but we're making decisions and setting clocks in there in the decisions we make during the meeting.
Right.
So it's
It's,
irrelevant.
yeah, you're a Monday morning quarterback.
Yeah.
Correct.
And we won't want that. We want you here at game day. So,
Yeah.
Can I say something to somebody that watches it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead and give us your name and address.
Robert Buell, I live at 3461 Montego Road, Brimfield Township or Brimfield. And my grandfather used to say years ago, Brim Tucky, but we've grown.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, boy.
I remember Kentucky.
Anyways, sometimes I did watch the zoning when I saw it and they were gonna discuss something that was told to me. Very hard to hear,
Yes,
very hard
Yes, it
to
is.
it is,
to understand what they were doing. I wish I was here instead of watching on the thing, volume all the way up.
Yeah.
Complaining. But anyway, and the meetings are that way. But
Yes.
he has changed some of the township meetings, so you can hear the reports from fire chief on a new fire station, things like that. So, but yeah, it is a little hard to understand sometimes because the room is not really.
And maybe once we get to the fire department, maybe it'll change.
I like the idea of, following the Ohio Revised Code. If the state makes a change and says we could YouTube all of it, I think that's when you go to it. We did that through COVID. We followed the state right. We just never ended it. So, I like following the state. We can't go wrong if we're following Ohio Revised Code. It's when we start making decisions above and beyond it, which makes it.
Have the
Little bit more
trustees made any
volatile.
comment about it?
Did
Have
the
the
trustee?
trustees, have they?
Are they still gonna do theirs?
They will not, so there's a separate, so when we talked to Chad, I says, do we put this in front of the boards or we put this in front of the trustees? And he says, no, the boards make their own rules. They have to decide whether or not.
What are the trustee meetings still going to be on YouTube?
I can't answer that, I don't
I
know.
don't know.
Well, our book here doesn't indicate that we made any type of affirmative action to accept transmitting the meetings via YouTube.
Correct. It was only changed temporarily through the state.
Right, and it was temporarily changed. So I guess that as of today, I believe all COVID
Yeah.
rules and so forth have been relaxed throughout
Correct.
the country and through the state of Ohio. So being that there's not a necessity we're not legally obligated, nor have we ever codified any type of action in our zoning book about our meetings. Then at that point, would we need to make any type, or should we just let it?
You'd have to make a motion on whether you want to keep it or not.
Well, we never made a motion then to accept it at the beginning.
Yes.
Well, you'd have to do it to end it because it was already ended by the state.
Okay.
Well, I have another question before we go. Maybe before. So in here on the second paragraph, he says, the only exception I would make is a zoning commission meeting over a controversial rezoning issue. I guess I'm just wondering, like,
Yeah.
I don't find that even valid to do that to a video.
Well, I think anybody can consider a zoning change controversial.
Right.
Yes,
But
I
fix
was-
them.
So
Yeah.
therefore, I think they should come to all meetings.
That's right.
That's right, yes.
If they're here, then they can have comment about it. If they're just watching it on YouTube, they just watch it happen, and it happens without their input. And we value their input,
I think,
so.
I think technology is great. I agree with you, but I think it's great. But I think that we need participation in the way that the state of Ohio runs these meetings.
Every time we move forward, I
This is how it's set up. Everybody's got to come in person.
Do we have a motion then?
Yeah, let's form up a motion. Make a motion that the broadcasting of zoning meetings by the zoning board, which are broadcast on YouTube, are no longer deemed necessary with the on removal of any of the COVID-related regulations or, I guess that'd be about it.
Well, how about in the wintertime? I mean, if we can't drive or whatever, can we have YouTube meetings?
Well,
then?
if we can drive to get here, then so can I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this would,
When we were doing those, we did Zoom.
we did Zoom meetings.
Oh,
Right.
Zoom, yeah,
Yes.
And we didn't do YouTube.
sorry.
Well, I'll second that.
Okay. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. So,
Okay, thank you. I will, notify them, and I'll notify Sue Fields, our liaison, and then she could announce that to the trustees that
all right, thank you.
we'll finish out this meeting.
All right.
Yeah, click.
Yeah, thanks for watching.
Yes, I meant to.
I don't think Mike and Sue for sure would. I don't know what Nick, I didn't talk to Nick about any of this. And, I did talk to Sue, and Sue's like, no, I think we want participation here. So I know she's all in favor of everybody coming to the meetings and voicing their opinion, because there's too many people sitting at home. It's like this, I'm not on the social medias, but there's like the social medias that, somebody a comment really rudely, and things and really not getting the full picture. So when you're here in attendance and you ask the questions, they might be like, oh, I understand, so.
And people are looking for content on YouTube. And a lot of people like to make comment on certain things that happen. And then you have people that comment on what they commented on.
Yeah.
It just kind of goes down.
Right, but we want to have that open dialogue. I mean,
Or they don't read that, or not up.
So for a perfect example, regional planning, usually this gets forwarded up, right? We're at a small township level. You guys pass this on to regional planning for the next level. Those videos they're not videotaped. Regional planning, everybody comes, and you're not on YouTube, correct?
No, we're not.
So, there's perfect,
Yeah.
All right.
So,
Well, plus all the decisions we're making fed up line to the trustees, so now.
And if they want to continue theirs, people could see at that level. Yeah.
Right.
Next issue is discussion of the park and rec zoning, specific zoning districts to protect the parklands within the township. We have Todd here from Regional Planning. Also, he was kind enough to acquire Chapter 380 from the Parks and Recreational District from the Rootstown Township zoning resolution for our review.
No, do it.
So yes,
No, go ahead.
So anyways, on chapter 388 from Rootstown, Mike had suggested you guys wanted to do a Parks and Recreation District, and so that's what this is. Obviously it's for Rootstown and not for Brimfield, so we need to make some changes to it. Obviously, when they reference the sections, they're not through sections, so we have to change those kind of things. And I met with Cassie yesterday about this and other things as well, but her only comment on, she didn't comment on anything on page 1. I highlighted on my sheet all the different sections that we reworked into the code. She looked at this list of permitted and conditionally permitted recreational uses, and she suggested adding pickleball, because that's kind of like a hot thing right now, that's not on this list, and she recommended taking, now hold tight, and so getting rid of horseshoe pits. And I said horseshoe pits was what we had cornhole. So, but that was her recommendation to do that. And then, I have not found where on 15, 16, 17 on page 2 there, we have facilities A and B, C and D. And what's odd to me, not only can I find it in this section of the document, but in addition, they include a use called type D, and then they say it's not even permitted. So I'd like to know what that is. And then they have type C that's conditional, so I want to find out more about that. And the only other thing, and I don't know if Rootstown scooped this up from the metro parks, but they have restaurants and lounges as uses in the parks. And so she said, yeah, there's restaurants and lounges. I'm assuming lounges also says alcohol. So, she told me to take those out.
Where do you see those, Todd?
19.
380.05, section C.
Page 2.
It's on page 2, it's line item number 19 there.
Okay.
Well, what if they decide baseball fields and they put in a concession stand?
Yeah, so
Right.
I recommended putting snack bars and concession stands at the end.
Okay,
Yeah, that's,
makes sense.
Take out the restaurants.
Yeah, restaurants and
And the lounge.
You know, believe it or not, my son is playing baseball tomorrow in North Ridgeville or North Royalton. And they actually have a restaurant that has TVs up that close circuits on all the fields, and they sell liquor and food. And you can go sit in an air-conditioned restaurant and watch your kid play ball. So not that that's anything that would ever happen here as long as at least I'm alive, but.
Well, the other thing too, let's say somebody suggests something like that, because let's say they become more popular, why doesn't Brimfield have one, you can always add it back in.
True.
Somebody asked that, we'll just say, we're looking for the person who wants to open that restaurant.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the same thing.
Well, what I think would be helpful would be to take an inventory of land that would be suitable to fit under this, and then designate them as, I think we have some land here that is not really suitable for a park, but we can put it in the park and say it's more for land conservation and for non-development. So I think in the parks, you want a portion of that also would be for non-suitable development, to indicate that land has been designated under the zoning code as conservation land. That would be something to be like 4 acres or 2 acres or a quarter acre or whatever, because sometimes land is gifted to the township and it's under power lines, or it's here or there. So if we have an inventory, then we can kind of mold chapter similar to 380 to kind of fit to that. So we know what we're kind of trying to achieve.
Well, the other thing I'm with Cassie on yesterday, it was about the Parks Master Plan. And so, I heard a couple of those when I was in Florida, and it's really easy to do. We did it in your comprehensive plan. We showed where true your active parks are,
Right.
just township parks. And they, we have the 15 or 25, what am I saying? Quarter mile, half mile, 3/4 mile. So the quarter mile is an easy walk to the park. Half miles, kind of like, there's people who are comfortable walking. And then 0.75 of a mile is a bike ride. It could be longer, it could be wider than that. But we circled those two and showed you how much area was contained in Brimfield and how much is serving the public. And there's just the two, and they're all located in the northeast side of town. Then she's got two parks, Nessus Park and the one that's over by Coles now. And so that you got those parks, but there's still a gap in the western side of the township, the south central part of the township. So, we, as part of that plan, we'd be looking at those kind of things and ideas and how to make a more complete, connection for parks.
Right, without knowing where those parcels are, it's kind of difficult to pick them out and say how big they are.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of tailor it to Brimfield in the sense of what's happening here and what, I guess, with the input from the trustees, kind of coming up with their vision as well, as because most parks are developed with money, and always money is a resource that's kind of scarce.
So she still hasn't, I don't think she's talked to John, and she hasn't broached it with the trustee yet.
Okay.
So she thinks that the cost that we gave her would probably work. And we may have given her the Cadillac version, because I think there's one Cadillac version. But we can always strip out a couple of things if you don't want all that, and that would lower the cost. And I think she's going to talk to me about sharing TA hours. So,
We'll be out of TA next month.
maybe.
Wait till you see what's coming.
Oh, well, whatever, however it works best, we just try
That's
to
fine.
serve the township. And so, anyway, so, you should see, maybe I should have brought you the draft, but it's just a draft, because I don't see some leadership, but I didn't. But if you can see what we're looking at doing, it's pretty comprehensive. I think it's going to be good. She wants that interactive parks information too, so that they'll help the public know more about their parks and things like that.
Any other comments, questions?
I'm trying to understand what you were saying about if we did own like a little quarter of an acre and it was designated as a part of a zone for park, okay? Wouldn't that just be like a wilderness or open space area?
Yeah, I was thinking, because if you go a little deeper into this, they have setback rules, they have parking requirements, then they have landscaping requirements as well, minimum parking setback requirements, they have a section located 08.6.
Yes,
Landscaping and screening, buffer yards, screening. So you get into, if you have a small piece of real estate, you may not be able to meet all the requirements of the setbacks and the screening.
So it couldn't be designated as it couldn't be a zone for, as a park.
It could be.
Unless it met all those.
Well, I'm thinking when you construct the section, you would take those pieces of land and designate them as a park, but you would exempt them from any of the setback rules and make them more indicated as a park, as a conservatory.
Nature preserve.
Yeah, nature preserve type property.
Okay, gotcha, yeah, okay.
So on page 3, they talk about the parks need to be a minimum area of 5 acres. So maybe we need to have distinguished that open space areas can be 0 to whatever.
Right.
And then usable parks need to be a minimum of 5 acres. I think the idea of the 5 acres was to not just put spots on,
Right.
Right.
Well, it seems like that's kind of what we're doing, going to do with indicating different parcels that we have. I think we have, 8 different parcels?
Mhm. Yeah, and that's not really spots on because it's a park. So yeah, I agree with you about that. Yeah, it could be
small.
Right.
Pocket parks. Yeah, we could, you mentioned all different areas, like, for example, Monitor Reservoir, people use it, or used to use it, I don't know how I still use it today, there's canoeing down there, and there's a trail, I don't know how good the trail ever is.
Well, it's maintained by the cross-country team at the Field High School.
So somebody, I forget who I was talking to, I think I was talking to Chris Chris Craycroft, and she said, Akron, who knows when Akron wants to sell that property, so you really can't count that, it's just, unmanaged and open to anybody who wants to use it at this point. And then Ken Bog and the Park District has some property south, and so one's owned by ODNR, and the other one in south of there is owned by the Park District.
Right, that's off the Old Forge, and by the railroad tracks.
Malloy, isn't it?
Mhm.
Malloy.
Yeah, Malloy, and then
That's the
maybe-
bog.
Maybe at the bog, maybe it's Old Forge on the south side.
Yeah.
So,
And then you have riparian setbacks set in there already, or are we still staying at 25 foot within that district?
no, so you're talking around the different topic now, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I'm just saying that we probably should add it because that was a concern from the parks.
So we're gonna be updating our subdivision regulations starting in June, it'll be taking place like one. And so, with that, there's no riparian setbacks, right? Hickory Creek, are we allowed to?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll still talk about Hickory Creek because I think it was a fall. So the second phase that was done, they had what then, the first phase, right? The first phase, it's 35-foot setback from that wetland. Well, they went and filled up to the water's edge, and that was not, that's not correct. It's not correct. So we had a meeting with the stormwater folks, and I said, I don't know, Mike wasn't there, but I think the comment came out about 75 foot. That was a meeting we had with Chris Craycroft and ODNR. And we mentioned the 75 foot to them, so we're talking about putting a 75 foot riparian setback from all water bodies, streams, creeks, and lakes. 75 feet is still not a lot of space, and it all is saying you're not going to build it there. And, but at the same time, if we call them buffers, then nothing goes in there, and when they do a site, they go out there and they stake that 75 foot all the way around the edge of wetlands, and they don't go in there grading or anything like that. That's not what it's meant for, because when you grade things to go into there, there's all kinds of silt. You have a silt fence, but still it's going to silt up pretty quick and change the value of that wetland. So anyway, so what I'm saying is we need to, the soil and water is responsible for that, not think from under the bus, but we had a meeting with them. Just like subdivisions 20 years ago or 15 years ago, there was one inspector around the county. Soil and water has one inspector for the entire county. And so we're going to add into those subregs on top of the setback, the riparian setbacks, we're going to add in that they have to have the development company hires their own, or excuse me, we hire, when I say we, Soil and Water would hire a consultant to be on site during our cleaning operations and to also manage or maintain that there is no violation to the wetland permit or to the riparian setback or actually impacting the wetlands or streams or lakes that are there, So as Nikki talked about that, he said that they had one inspector doing all the subdivisions around the county. And I live in one of those. And I have my problems with the way that subdivision actually turned out. A nice subdivision, but they did a really poor job with the storm drains. My storm drains are where the school bus stop is, and I'm on the bottom of the hill, so the water, it's kind of like a slanted hill. So the driveways come this way. They get and they follow the edge of the grass, and they hit that sidewalk, and then they just go shooting straight down. So I get like 10 houses of water coming down my sidewalk. It's not really my sidewalk. But it is that it goes there. It's to a decent speed. It's the back of curve, sinks down and gets into the storm drain from behind, and it's like a foot deep. I've replaced, got the gravel in there 4 or 5 times, so basically put 3 or 4 bags of gravel in there every 3 years. Is how that's up. Even right now, it's probably a foot down again. They fixed it. We're going to township being out to fix it. And, 2 years later, the same thing's happening. And I'm just really worried about kids dancing around on the curb and stepping the wrong way and falling into a 1 foot hole and breaking, just an ankle or break a leg even. So.
Those things never get fixed right. When they're put in, it's just a continuing saga for years and years and years.
There's a design flaw. You look at subdivision on a blank piece of paper, it all looks flat. Until you actually go out there, it's like more like that. And so, anyway, that's part of the problem. All right, I think we're off topic a little bit. I'm trying to listen to what you're saying as far as, do you want to wait till after the master plan is done before creating this? Or are you saying we should create this and wait to see, or just put it in place and then when the master plan comes out, we can modify it at that point.
Well, the master plan would give us some guidance, I think, on what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and when we talked with Cassie about that, you know, we just completed the county's town plan, it's gonna be approved, next week. And that one took a big lift off of us, so, and then also, other good news is we hired another planner. So now we have 3 planners instead of 2 of us running around like chickens with heads cut.
The concern I would have is you don't know if that plan's gonna get approved or not. So the trustees would have to approve you doing the comp plan for the parks. So I would say keep going forward with what they're doing unless we.
I think we'll have our feedback here in the next month or so. So I come back in 2 months.
Yeah,
So-
well, I think the first thing that we could do is look at the resources that we have in the community. I mean, because I can't name all the locations. And look at the ones that are suitable for improvement, park improvements. Design it such that, and the ones that aren't suitable, then we kind of cut them out and put them into a different portion of the chapter.
Yeah, I think it would be nice to get a chapter started.
Yeah.
Because we're eliminating this year, and then you can replace the whole chapter next year once the comp plan is done. But at least you have a guideline, a form of protection. You know, you've got that 140 acre parcel that's kind of vulnerable. I mean, it's there, but it borders Talmadge, and I know that Talmadge wanted that park just as well. I'd like to put some kind of guidelines within there so that we're protecting our parks.
Right.
For at least the time being, and then you could always change out the comp plan later.
So there's, on page 3 at the bottom here, I noticed the inconsistency that occurs later there. They say that you have to be 50 feet from a residential property, and then 100 feet minimum from any existing residential dwellings. I think that's fine to have something like that, because when you have a soccer field or ball field, I can hear the kids playing at the ball field in my township, and they're a good 4.5 mile away. And I know which way the wind's blowing, it's not like they're in my backyard, and I don't have a problem with that, kids having fun, laughing, and everybody's having a good time. But, yes, if you're like within 100 feet of it, it might be a different experience.
I think the over by the middle school, the soccer field that we have there, that would be interesting to take a look at and see if we would apply these boundaries, how that would kind of fit within something that's already existing in that sense, because I think it might be in excess of 50 feet.
Yeah, right now it's fallen under town center, and they're using that, and they just went to BZA last month, or was it the month before?
One of the two.
Yeah, so they're putting in a parking lot, and things are ready, so they've got approval for that. But for future use, yeah, if they're putting pavilions or what they're doing, right now we have that storage unit on there. And then you'd want restrictions as well as that, because we get a lot of complaints on that, so, you know.
Well, there's a lot to operate in a park.
Right.
You'll have to, pavilions, parking lots, restrooms, water.
Handicap accessibility.
Yeah, they have to be handicap accessible and so forth.
So, but couldn't they be set up in a way that, I'm thinking down here, we put the pavilion in, and, I don't know what the deal is with that. I can't remember, because there's something to do with the bathrooms back there. They have to have so many different things, you had to have bathrooms in there. Can we do it in a way that like, if we designate a park area, that it can grow with?
Sure.
You start off small, you're not gonna build all that stuff out.
Any other comments or questions?
The-
I heard you say you wanted a map as well.
Yeah, I think if we can look at originally what properties that we're looking at to designate
Okay,
and
so
such, which is probably all the vacant land that the township owns. More than likely that is unencumbered by anything.
So that would include the county parks and the state
Well,
parks?
I'm not really, would our zoning regulations supersede any of the county?
This is the first thing purpose. So they would have that land.
Right. But our township zoning, would that supersede their or give them guidance on what would need to be done?
Well, if you want everybody who operates the park.
Because right now I'm kind of looking at township properties, but you're right, we do have county resources.
I would say if we have a zoning resolution and we put it in place before they build the park, they'd have to follow our laws, our rules.
I think they were suggesting, because Chris Watt and Bog are both very passive parks, right?
Yeah,
So they're not like in a stadium or anything like that, or
Right.
ball field even.
no, that's not gonna, but you do have the park, I believe, the one that hasn't been developed yet, used to be the quarry down on in Carter Lumber, I think, owned that years ago, and designated it the township or the county, and they took possession of it. There's a sign there that it's across from, what's the development, access down there on, is that Howe Road?
Oh, yeah. That's kind
Down there on Howe Road.
of part of it's okay.
So
So,
the bog.
Yeah.
The only thing that is maintained on the bog is the trail, right?
Yeah, the parking lot,
Parking lot, the trail.
I mean, it's there, do you want to designate that as a park and have them follow rules consistent with the rest of the township parks? Or not, you know, I mean, I think they're in open space conservation, we could leave them there too.
Yeah.
Rather than give them our 11, say, we're changing your zone.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, why don't we take a look at what the county has as well?
Okay.
And,
I mean, all we're doing is collecting information.
Right.
Yeah, that's all.
well, I think we need to develop language that prohibits any future administrations from selling our parks.
right,
So, to me, that's like number one.
would we have that authority?
Yes, if you're putting it in here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Say sell the property.
Well, we,
Yeah, you could put, yeah, if you're gonna sell it, exactly.
we have authority over county property.
Yes.
So the priority would be to get the list of properties, then look at them.
And protect them.
Yeah, and then protect them.
Right.
So, the other thing down here on the bottom page three, we talked about it a little bit, I would check other standards on that, 50 or 100 feet, should they be bigger, should they be smaller? I know in Kent, this was Franklin Township, there's a guy that lives next to a basketball court, and it drives him nuts. These kids having fun, but
It would-
you're like, boop, 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 all day.
Yeah, that would get you
Yeah.
after a
And then
while.
we have lights.
And-
Sometimes, yeah. So the other thing on page 4 is they have a 50-foot height limitation. I don't know, unless you're building an observation tower, I don't know unless you're gonna build 50 feet tall in a park.
Top flight golf,
That's
true.
50 feet tall.
Yeah, but that would be.
That's private.
That's true.
I like that idea.
Anything you build that tall, you probably won't do.
Isn't that going in behind Speedway?
What's that?
We can't go that tall, we can't go that tall anyhow, our fire department can't support it.
They don't have ladder trucks, so.
Right.
So, okay, so I'll look at the 50 footer, we can discuss that further. Then the next one on the schedule, or the number G, the schedule for like front and rear side setbacks. It seems like it's in conflict with the 50-foot, 100-foot requirement. And so I'd like to put an asterisk on there saying that, if you're next to a residential property or a residential dwelling, there's these other standards, So that was just a minor fix. There's a setback from the right of way. If they have side and rear setbacks, again, they should be 50 feet. And then from the street right of way, it's 20 feet, which is pretty close to the road. I mean, when I think about that, 20 feet is almost the length of a car. A car is a little bit smaller than that, so.
Well, 20 feet is typically utility easement right away.
Yeah.
So,
But they might want to have a little bit more of a setback so people can get into the park and so that before you start building that. And then the screenings, I was just looking at that, there's nothing really nothing bad with these screenings. There's the option in B, toward at the bottom, the last part of this, is that, you have like one or more options to follow. They even have four, so if it's already wooded, you just leave it wooded, don't do anything with it. And then there's a opacity, and then, or burning or a non-living opaque wall or fence. I don't think that's a really big deal. So I can address all of those for the July meeting.
Okay.
And try to get the right set of numbers so you don't have to get this done.
So you're gonna make those changes?
I'll make the changes and try to get them to Cassie sooner than later, so that way you guys have more time to figure out.
Designated area to be a park, does that have to, when it meets a certain criteria? When you apply for a grant to like improve that area, or sometimes grants are available for ball fields or pickleball or whatever?
Yeah, a lot of times grants are available.
Do they look into that to see if you're set back as things are right? No.
They typically do not. However, if we have a master plan, we could say, according to our master plan, and we put in the comp plan references in the comp plan, you can go after the grant and say, hey, this is in our master plan for our community, master plan for our parks, and a lot of those kind of grant funds are for preserving land. Some of them are for pouring land for sport, but there's a lot more money for preserving land. So, and if that happened, they got the grant, then they'd have to come to you guys and say, okay, we bought this pretty piece, we need to have the zone properly.
Okay. All right, so we'll look forward to seeing you in July.
Yeah.
We'll meet in June. You're busy.
No, right now, I'm working on 2 comprehensive plans.
Oh, okay.
Yours and Shayla's. So next month I can go to Shayla's, and you guys meet the same day and time.
Oh, okay.
So I haven't flown myself just yet. So that's what we're gonna do.
What is coming?
That's fine.
Lonnie is coming?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I need a partner.
Okay,
Okay,
very good. Any other questions? I guess we're gonna move forward with that, and I'm looking forward to seeing you working to develop that. That's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, I'll work a little bit with, I'll work with both Cassie and Mike here as well to make sure that they're okay with it and understand what we're doing.
Okay. Let me ask you one final question. Ravenna Township, is that the only township that has a park section in their zoning?
No, it's this time.
Excuse me, Ridgetown.
Yeah, as far as I know, they're in our town.
Okay, all right.
Are they bigger than Brimfield? Who's?
Who's bigger than Brimfield?
Nobody is.
Who's town?
Heck, no.
I
No, Brimfield's the biggest, the largest unincorporated township. Bridgetown is trying to get there, but they're pretty far behind. About 10,000 people behind. Well, maybe 8,000 people behind, but just behind.
All right. Update of the 2015 land use plan.
So I got a lot of stuff here for you. So when I was here I guess I was here in March, we discovered that one of the primary things that we're doing is trying to update the census numbers to the 2020 census.
Right.
Because when we did it the other time, we did it in 2010, they're already 10 years old basically by the time we approved the plan. And then the 2020 census came out, but they don't release that. Typically, they release everything in April of 2022. And all they released was state information. They didn't release, I don't even think they released county information. So all the counties, cities, and villages and townships will come out May 25th, which is 2 weeks from now, basically. And so it is 2 weeks from now. So we don't have that data, but we're working on, Gail has updated the maps that go into the plan to be more consistent with that. The goals, objectives, and policies. When I was here in March, I mentioned to Sue that I really like to have a meeting with the trustees and department heads to go over the plan, since we adopted it 3 years ago. And we want to make sure that if anything news come up that we didn't have in there, like we didn't have COVID in there, I don't think we need to put COVID in now either. But we didn't have COVID, and that really shook everything up. And so if there's new information or new opportunities, we need to put those down there. We have started adding things to the updated the maps. We started adding those to the interactive version, but we haven't changed the one you guys have online. It's still a work in progress. We do want to do a survey. We want to follow the same survey we did the last time, just so you have apples to apples when you look at the data. Gail in her office, she was saying, there's a lot of questions here that the public seems to struggle with. And so we probably should talk about those. And if you guys are having a meeting in June, I can highlight those and send them back, and you guys will decide if you want to keep those or not. I want to have some community meetings, so actually invite community members to come out. I don't know where we hold those yet, maybe at the field or, who's the guy with the golf course and that really nice thing? It's probably too big for what we need, but anyway. But, so I looked at, I was thinking if we did that in August and then had the final draft in October, we'd like to have another meeting about what we're December or early January, how their schedule works. I know the holidays, even with Thanksgiving, kind of screw those, at the end of the year.
How accurate do you think the census was for 2020?
I'm sorry?
How accurate do you think the census for
Well, it's
2020
really
is?
disappointing, because
Right in the middle of COVID.
Well, that's a big one, the COVID so what happened, all right, so Kent really got, Kent and Hiram really got hammered, because what happened is, and many of them went home. And so they were typically at college, and Kent lost, I think it was 30%.
Wow.
Off census numbers. So we were told that they're going to try to, historical trends for, historically what was Kent at, and try to do their best on that. That's a big error right there that they're pointing out. And there was people who didn't want to answer the door, they didn't answer the mailer. There's another source for census data, and it can be off as much as 20%. So I almost don't feel that's a statistical valuable thing. How many of you have filled out an American Community Survey? You filled it out once? No? You guys know what I'm talking about?
No.
Okay, so I haven't filled one out either, and they've been doing it since 2005. And it's it's a little bit more detailed, I guess, than the census, because the census dropped income and other things raised. I think maybe was there still on? I don't think it was. I don't know if it was, but anyway, so they dropped a lot of things, so it was just, just 10 questions. I think that's what it was, 10 minutes, 10 questions or something like that. And so we don't have good, poverty statistics for each community anymore. Like, so with Manaway Village, for example, they're considered not LMI, but moderate income. And moderate income is, in the 40s to 50,000, depending on how people live there. But because because the rest of the township, they're kind of, Manaway Village is stuck in with Manaway Township. The Manaway Township is not LMI at all. And so now Manaway Village is not LMI at all. We had to knock on every single house in Manaway Village and ask strangers, how much money do you guys make?
Yeah.
And watching the news where somebody knocking on the wrong door and they got shot, it makes it feel even worse. So we don't ask it that way, that sounds pretty rude, but we say, we do ask how many people are here, is it 3, and then I say, let's say 3 is 45,000 for LMI, and I say, do you guys make more or less than that? And they say more, and I'm like, great, or they make less, they want to tell me the exact amount to make, I said, I don't care about your exact amount, I don't want to be any more personal than I already am. And some people would get mad at it, of course, they can throw something on my face once in a while. And then usually we're doing that to get a grant. You have to serve as LMI, and it has to be for a grant. And so it's something to do for the community. And the one in Manaway Village was they had to replace their 100-year-old water system. And by replacing it, the idea was to lower their bills. So they were, when I told them that part, they were a little bit more excited because they said they're paying $200 a month in water bills. Okay. So, I don't put a lot of faith in the census. I do put a lot of faith in the U.S. Census. I do not put a lot of faith in the American Community Survey portion because of the statistical errors. Okay, so the last thing, so I mentioned that I wanted to have you guys approve it in November, and the trustees either early December, or early January. And I also want to attend Brimfest and set up a booth and ask the public who may not normally want to come to a public hearing or community meeting. They have their kids and, they're just, wandering around. And so we just ask them some short questions, provide a few maps of some of the things we're talking about, and so you get some opinions that way. At least we're trying to reach out and get more input from people.
Good idea.
So I was living in Florida. I'm from Ohio. I'm from Ohio, right over Penn State. Got a master's at Ohio State in planning, And I went down there and, we have these community meetings and I'd have I'd have the BZA member show up, I'd have the zoning commission show up, I'd have the city council or the trustees show up. And that was really it. Nobody from the public ever showed up to those meetings. So I was like, well, how do we get people? And so then we had a meeting at one of our park events, and we got like 600-700 people. And gave us some comments. I was actually, this is a great story. I know you're probably a lot of stories, but we were working on a master plan for the town of Brimfield, Florida. It was basically two townships that were merging together as a fishing community, and they had a seafood festival every year, and it was to die for. But the combined population was only about 2,500 people. Over 10,000 people showed up for that.
Oh, my
event.
goodness, wow.
And I think out of the 2,500 people, we had almost 1,000 people from the villages or the community itself vote on it. And I always tell people, people say, how big is your community input? Well, this community is only 2,500 and 10,000 people showed up. All right, so that's all I have on the comp plan. I do have an updated story map if you want for the historic structures. You want to hear about that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
So
we can do that.
So this would really be great. So we really made tremendous
We'll
progress.
move to the good of the order now, and the next meeting is June 8th.
Okay.
Now we'll go to good of the order, and you can add that in.
Oh, sorry. That was not on the agenda, so our intern Caitlin, who I don't know if you actually got to meet her or not, but she did a great job. She got us really close to the end of the project, really. And we only spent, the total amount was this hourly not to exceed. And we only spent like $6,000 on that, so we had $14,000 left. So we were talking about doing the structure that are no longer here, that kind of thing. And so anyways, after that meeting, she disappeared. She had severe migraines and she never came back. 5-6 weeks. So finally, we called her all the time to check on her. She's like, I got a really bad migraine, I can't. And she was like, can I work from home? No. If you have a bad migraine, I don't think you're
That's
going to
Yeah.
So anyway, she did leave us and we hired a new intern, who's also an architecture major. She starts on May 22nd. So we're hoping to finish this in June, but I think we're probably finishing closer to July, maybe June still. We're close, but we want to do that other extra part. And we also want to do a survey of the public for that, and we're thinking that maybe we don't want to put the structure survey in with your survey, and we don't want to over-survey people.
Right.
However, I think what we're going to do is create like a little flyer for your website, the township's website, and we'll say, well, this survey is about the land use plan and how development is, and talks about parks and things like that as well. And it's to click on that if you want to answer those. And then if you're interested in historic structures, maybe we have a link to the one we did so far for Brimfield, and they can make comments on that. One of the things that Mike had talked to me about, he wants to do a historic district on Talmadge Road in 43 area, so we probably need to discuss that with you guys at some point if you want to, and it's always work with the Coastal House folks too, and the Historical Society. And then like I said, I think we have enough money left in that budget that we can do the ghost buildings, so the ones that aren't.
Okay.
In fact, I think I told you guys this, when we had 80 in the list to do, and it's probably why we haven't spent so much money, is that we went out to take pictures of them, only 40 still remain of the 80.
Yeah.
Just buy some ghost buildings in there. So.
Okay, very good. Sir, you stopped in. Do you have
I
comments?
just have a question. I
Okay.
know some things are very hard to enforce, but we have a house in the neighborhood and Mike's aware of it. And here's some pictures of the sorted machinery and things that have been there for over 2 years.
Are these copies of the same photograph? A couple of them,
Some
sorry.
are different.
This house, yeah.
Some are different, little angle, I mean, a couple of them might be the same, but, it's from the road. Now, I didn't get the backyard because there was a shed back there and a tree fell
Oh,
on.
my.
Well, it's just all rumbled and wood, but there used to be, 3 pickup trucks and a boat in the backyard.
Oh, my goodness.
The pickup trucks, I think we talked to him about it and whatever, anyways, the pickup truck disappeared and the boat, but another boat appeared in the front.
So the problem, we can accept it and look at it, but know that the township has turned everything over to the prosecutor's office.
Well,
So this is a pending court case, so we can't
Discuss
discuss. Yeah, because it's pending court.
So there has been some legal action
there
taken.
was an article in the paper that it was going up for foreclosure.
Okay.
So I looked it up online, and if they paid $168,000 for that house when they bought it.
Let me ask you this, and I'm going to interrupt with questions as they pop in my head because I'll forget them if I don't ask them. So the pictures that you've gave to us here, is that before the house went up for auction or after? So what owners are we?
That was 2 weeks ago,
Okay.
and the house already.
So the current
went up for
owner.
foreclosure, supposedly.
Okay.
All right, well, I followed it on the auction, and the minimum bid was $66,000. Somebody bid on it. Nobody bid any more, and at the end, it went off the site. Couldn't find it anywhere. But talking to people that bought foreclosures and things like that, sometimes it takes a year to 2 years to evict the people that are in it. I mean, they just don't take over.
Right.
You know, and they're probably back taxes and stuff. He was arrested at one time by Brimfield, and then the county came and got him and took him away. And the chief, I talked to him, was county, I don't remember.
That's
Well, you should know if somebody was arrested in the neighborhood, what went on, but I think something else. Anyways, the grass is like this normally, but it's matted down now. But it's gonna be a problem, you know, and everybody around it, this nice couple bought this little house across from them, they have to look at it.
Yeah.
And then they found out after they got it, that the county's gonna build a roundabout at our intersection.
Right.
So it's gonna take part of their front yard, and we hope they take the whole damn thing on that side. But anyways, it just, and then down the street is commercial property
Right.
and, industrial, I think it's on down there. Jeff Eddy has old buildings that he had rental stuff. We had a building to the north, to the north of his main building there. And the guy had a body shop in there. And, you know, conditional use or whatever, didn't bother anybody, nobody around. Well, he went out of business. Now a new guy comes in, junk cars, sitting in all kinds of disrepair. Then they tore out bushes and made a second driveway without, don't you have to have permission?
We have that one in court too. That's behind the place of some of the statues or the concrete. I'm trying to think, they ran over
Across the street.
it. Yeah.
Well, I think Jeff is having some problems because they're not there like they used to, and the ponds got weeds and stuff, and his kids.
Right.
So I've known him for years, lived there 55 years. The next place down, that guy took that, closed Richard Street off and built that building, never finished his landscaping.
Right.
Never mows the grass, all the trees that they put in there died, don't follow up on that?
So trees, landscaping, cutting grass, that's maintenance issues. The township cannot enforce those. But if it's junk,
But it's
if
landscaping that
if
he
it's-
was required to put in, that you made him stop and put that dirt mound up front. You put trees in there.
Where was this at?
So we cannot.
Where the old horse barn used to be, where on Bolivar Road,
Okay, yeah.
go past the recycling plant, Jeff Eddy, and then just around the curve is this place that they closed Richard Street off. Now he's dumping all kinds of stuff along it.
If there's a specific condition that the BZA puts on, so for example, there was one with those Sunoco, I believe it's the Sunoco big tanks. And we always hit that issue because they plant these spruce trees all along, and then a year later they die. So I have to go out, and it's almost like a yearly or bi-yearly thing that I go out and I take pictures of these little 6-foot trees that were required. But then these tanks are 30 foot in the
It's
air.
what we said.
You know, they're not blocking anything, but they constantly are. So because it was a condition that the Board of Zoning Appeals put on it, I can enforce it. If it's not a condition that they put on it and says you shall have the following things and they specify as a condition of that, then that's great. But if it's not there, then I can't enforce like grass cutting or trees or
Drive by and
shrubbery.
take a look at it.
Yeah.
You know, you vacated Richard Street there, run across the
Well,
tracks over that.
And in your whole area, the area you're talking about is on Todd and I's radar because this is the area that is zoned commercial now. And then it goes into LI just past the accounting firm. And all that's residential homes. And then a cemetery. No, it's light industrial going all the way up. And then heavy industrial back from like, you know, and Todd and I drove it and we're like, we're never going to get light industrial down here. Like, why in the world is it zone light industrial? So that's another change that whole zoning district's going to change here and we're going to present that. But you're right. Yeah, it looks pretty bad.
There's nothing more terrible than a neighbor having to look at a property next door that's in disrepair.
You see some of the areas that have, I mean, you go down there to Maple Crest, you know, and they mow their grass and they send me a thing from Myers. How was your shopping experience? Well, I answered truthfully. My grandfather was in the grocery business for 57 years with all grass acne.
Oh, yeah.
As kids, we went with grandpa, and if you took something off the shelf, you pulled the next one out and made sure the label was on. Well, you walk into Myers, and where the carts, of course, you know, people leave carts all over.
Yeah.
If somebody leaves a handicap cart, I got a little can of spray, I spray it down, and I get it on, I take it back, and I put it where it should go. And I do the same with Brian Dexter across the street, because nothing worse than if you can't walk, get a wet bottom sitting in the salt. And so I think they take care of things and stuff, and you go by some of these companies, and man, they got nice flowers, and they got stuff, and it's really nice. But then you see these other guys, all they do is show up and make money, you know? And they don't realize that when I moved out there, I thought it was farm country. I didn't know that what's his name there changed everything when he was on the zoning committee to all industrial, all his farmland with all his horses and all this stuff. Well, I'm a city boy, Colorado Falls, you know, I come out, man, there's 70 horses over there, they're in my side yard because they got bad fences. Oh, man, I went and bought a used auger and I'm taking it back, and I'm a horseman, you know. Then all of a sudden, here comes the recycle thing. Well, first, it was a garbage transfer, and we got rid of it, and we beat that, and with the recycle. That girl has made that place a showcase.
Yeah.
It's clean, it's nice. I mean, she mow the grass, I go by there tonight, and there's 7 geese with 800 goslings, you know.
Yeah.
Those are.
We'll be concentrating on that area.
But I mean, if you just, you know,
There's
I know there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they foreclosed on it, and
Right, and
do you want to keep those?
no, they're yours.
Oh, because I got copies of them.
What I'd like to say is that unfortunately, the process goes very slowly.
Yes.
Mike's aware of it. He's taken
Oh, he's
action.
been aware of it,
It's in
and
court.
he's done what he
We
can
have to,
do.
we have to go through the legal process, and that legal process turns very slowly.
Oh, well,
And that seems to be where we're at.
We're getting stuff done, but it's typically taking 2 to 3 years to get.
It's very
yeah,
slow.
it's really slow. I mean, I know some of the things that you were talking about at the meetings before, that you were having problems. It took you 2.5 years. You went through these housing permits for, you
Search
know,
warrants.
police and everything, and found older people living in there, all kinds.
So Mike's aware of it, we're aware of it. We
Okay,
thank you.
I just wanted to show you
Yeah,
some
if it-
new people, you know,
But
good.
the one thing that I can tell you that if it gets out of hand and we watch it where if it starts getting too long, and Todd, I think you had this problem with prosecution and getting zoning things matters. I think did you guys have just a meeting with the prosecutor's office to expedite some of them?
We did, and he said 90% of the cases were junk in the yards, right? And so he said what we need is a better definition to be more inclusive as to what junk really means, you know, and I don't know how I can list that all out, but he was just saying that they find a loophole because it's not, what the junk that they're talking about isn't specifically listed in the zoning code, you know?
Should I show the prosecutor's office?
Sure, go ahead.
We have.
Doing that pretty soon when that roundabout starts, you know, the folks are in my front yard.
I can tell you that we have 2 attorneys now working for the township, and the one attorney we just gave 3 cases to because we wanted to expedite. We didn't want it going. So the township's willing to pay our own attorneys to handle, and they can only handle it to a point and then turn it over to the prosecutor once it's all handled and prepared, and then, you know, because the way that the law works, but it did work in 2 of the cases.
Well, he had free range chickens for a while till the coyotes got them and the cars got them.
We got some chicken issues as well. So.
The neighbors up the street, Williamson, my wife went to school with them. She calls one day and she says, "Bob, do you have chickens?" I said, "No." I said, "It's the guy in the corner." She says, "Oh, well, they're under my deck." I said, "Hey, the price of eggs."
Yeah, they are.
Let me tell you, let me offer an invitation for you because it's up at least till tomorrow at 4:00, but we have a zoning alternate position. So, you know, as many people as we can get apply, you're more than welcome to sit on board. You know, it's good to have a good voice and you know, help make changes. So.
I worked 31 years for the city of Colorado Falls. Now, the city is wholly different.
Yeah.
We found one of these problems, they go out there, and the next thing you know, I got my guys with 5 dump trucks and a backhoe, and we're hauling it away.
Unfortunately, we're a township.
And we don't have, townships were different.
Yeah, we're a little bit different.
It's-
Let me get this meeting closed and then we can continue. Again, next meeting will be June 8th at 7 o'clock. And a motion to adjourn.
I motion we do.
All in favor?
second that motion.
Aye. Opposed?
Okay, thank you.
So what did Jeopardy Masters?
I think we got the alternates up enough. We're supposed to get I haven't seen any applications.